Before we get started, a humorous thing about that, well, it is moderately humorous for anybody who absolutely despises the Windows troubleshooting thing as much as I normally do. Normally, if you have an issue on Windows, you use the troubleshooting thing and it doesn't work. Yesterday, after poking around in my computer trying to work out what on earth was going on with my microphone, I checked every setting I could possibly think of, restarted multiple times, la la la. I then decided to check the troubleshooting thing, and the damn thing worked. I don't know why it worked. I don't know how it worked, but it did. I was not best pleased because that happened around about 40 minutes after the stream was meant to go live. So we just decided, hey, you know what? Let's leave this alone for tonight. We'll come back to it tomorrow, which is what we are now doing. Little heads up. This is going to be a slightly different stream to usual. In a way, it's getting back to how things used to be. I'm also not super sure we are on YouTube. Are we on YouTube? I haven't seen Philomena comment and say we are on YouTube. Oh, yes, we are indeed. Thank you for that, love. I was going to drop it out and start it again. Glad I didn't. As I was saying, this was going to be a slightly different stream. What we're going to do is go back to an old way of doing things. Anyone who remembers, Joe months and months and months ago did a fantastic series of streams on the UN agenda. That was it. Thank you, Mark. She did a wonderful series of streams on the UN agenda, and it was really bloody interesting, and it was also very well received. We are going to be doing something kind of similar, in that we are going to be focusing on very, very specific things, such as this. Let's bring that into the middle of the screen, that way we can all actually read it and not mess around. This website is... There we go. That's much better. I'm not used to hosting. You'll have to forgive me, chat. This website is... Did I mention at the top? There you go. Personnel Today. For anyone who is interested, Personnel Today proudly boasts that it is the leading free access HR website with 300,000 UK unique visitors every month. Basically, it is one of the big fish, and it is very interesting to see what these people have. Not because they're right, but because it's actually kind of frightening. They are, well, as you can read from this article here, last week the owner of Pimlico Partners said he wouldn't offer a job to anyone who hasn't been vaccinated. Perfectly reasonable, we all know that. Philomena now says we can't, or she can't see us on DLive. What is happening here? What is happening? This explains many things. 1 second, how do we do this? I think we do a bit of this. And a bit of that. And there you go. Hopefully that's now over on DLive. Apologies to everybody else. I'm not the normal host. This is rather unusual for me. As I was saying, we all know that Pimlico Partners decided to go a bit mental a couple of weeks ago now and say that anyone who doesn't have a vaccine would not be given a job. They go on to say that given the general working population haven't been offered the vaccine yet, his approach is somewhat premature. I find that single sentence the most baffling thing in this entire article. Probably could have done this beforehand. There we go. Now it's nice and red. You can all see it. For anyone who doesn't know, that is a thing called Super Simple Highlighter. It's a wonderful thing. You download it onto Chrome and Brave, and it makes going through articles much, much easier. His approach is somewhat premature. Basically saying that we're not going to employ you if you don't have a vaccine. But the issue of whether employers can insist to take the vaccine, when it is offered to them, is one of many things that people are starting to grapple with. This person, whoever Joe Mosley is, then goes and writes this just hot trash article. I'm not really sure what else to say about it. The tone in this article is something you should really pay attention to. I'm going to put the link to the chat as well, just in case anybody wants to read ahead or read up later on. Hopefully that went everywhere. Bloody hell, it went to D-Live. What a novelty that is. There's no legal basis the government can rely on to force people to be vaccinated. And people won't be forced to vaccinated. People won't be forced to have a vaccine if they don't want one. That's good to know. Instead, the government wants to persuade people that they're safe. Why does it need to persuade people? I'm pretty damn certain nobody was aided on things that they genuinely believed. Or things that were genuinely true. Clearly, if the government can't legally compel people to be vaccinated, you can't frog march your staff to the nearest vaccination centre either. As if this person's kind of, I don't know, a little bit upset that they're not able to frog march people to the nearest vaccination centre. It's a little bit odd. The government hasn't published information on the vaccinations for the general public. However, its guidance for frontline healthcare workers is instructive. Indeed, it is. They are now talking about making vaccinations mandatory for NHS staff, which I'm about to show you right now. Super smooth, tech boomer moment. My shortcut keyboards, very confused. There you go. NHS considering mandatory vaccinations for frontline staff. This was announced today. Interestingly enough, seemingly a couple of care homes are already doing this, but these people are, they, one way or another, they're going to do it. We will be covering this article again shortly. There it is, for anybody who wants to read that one. Apparently, the government guidance explains the benefits for it, which is good to know. This is something that is also quite instructive, which we're going to be getting to in the second article. The way they're going to do this is not by telling you it makes you safer, it's by telling you that it makes everybody else safer. It is very clever, to be honest with you. When we go through the NHS one, you'll see something that stands out. It is basically them saying it is your professional duty to do this, and if you don't, you're very, very naughty. The second point that they bring up, the first paragraph basically just summarizes health and safety laws, common sense stuff. In the second part, though, they talk about strongly encourage staff to take the vaccine when it is offered to them. This line is the bit that actually made me want to talk about this tonight. Because, as I said earlier on, and as I laid this website out with, it is a very, very, I'm not going to say well respected because I'm not in HR, but at the end of the day, with 300,000 unique viewers, that's quite a lot of people. That's a lot of people looking at this website. I'm not sure how respected it is amongst HR people, but judging by the numbers, I would say it pulls at least some amount of weight. We could look into this website a bit more later on. When they're talking in ways like this, however, to reduce the risk of catching or spreading COVID to others at work, you can and should strongly encourage staff to take the vaccine. At what point does encouragement become bullying? Or even if bullying isn't the appropriate word, at what point does encouragement become pressure? If you're the only person in the office that hasn't taken that vaccine, there's probably not going to be a good place for you to be. I would imagine, at any rate. And yeah, they're talking about strongly encouraging without really defining what that means. Does that mean incentivizing with payment? Does it mean constantly bringing it up? Does it mean moving them into different jobs, which is something this article covers later on? You know, what I would be interested to know, I think this is the section that mentioned it, actually. I'll check my notes, 1 second. Yes, it is indeed. But in this section here, they mention somewhere, maybe we read the entire thing actually, that way everybody's on the same page. Is it reasonable? Is it a reasonable instruction to our staff to take the vaccine? This is important because, as a matter of contract and employment law, if you can establish that asking staff to take the vaccine is a reasonable management instruction and they refuse, they may be able to justify taking action against them for disobedience, or you may be able to. Apologies. So what they are saying is, if it is believed to be reasonable that they're telling you to take the vaccine and you refuse, they can take you to court or they can get rid of you, which is a terrifying prospect considering the amount of jobs this would apply to eventually. Because this is a real slippery slope sort of moment. David, we're going to be getting onto that later on, mate. They do mention that actually. The answer for that I thought was bloody interesting. Basically, don't lie. Whatever you do, don't lie. You're going to get found out, I have a feeling. As I was saying, this is a real slippery slope sort of thing, because as more and more jobs start mandating that you need to take it, there's going to be less and less room for people who don't. You're suddenly going to start being the odd one out. And this goes for both you as an individual, your business, if you are a business owner, or your entire industry. Let's take something, for example, such as the Pimlico Palmers, for example. I have a very strong feeling that if this were to go to an employment tribunal, Pimlico would win, which is frightening. The reason I say that is because they would just argue that you're going into multiple people's houses every single day, and then you're unvaccinated. Well, the point of the vaccine, as they keep saying, as the UN keeps saying, is not simply so you don't catch the virus. It is so its impact is lessened on you, but also so it reduces the transmission spread. So yeah. Ooh, I don't mean to do that. Employment lawyers disagree whether it is reasonable to ask and take action against any member of staff who refuses to be vaccinated. Lawyers do. They disagree on lots of things. That's fine. Depends on a number of factors, the most important of which is whether the vaccination will protect other members of staff or people they come into contact with, such as patients, school children, customers, service users, etc. Both the government and World Health Organization advise the vaccinated people are much less likely to transmit the virus to others. That is what they're going to get people on. That's what they're going to knock you with. Well said indeed, John Lee Not Power. If you're confronted with a yes or no question and the answer can only be yes, that's tyranny. Exactly. Very well said, mate. It's also why we named the stream as we did, Tuesday Tyranny, on a Wednesday. Don't ask. Technical issues notwithstanding, we're going to pretend it's Tuesday. This is the really frightening bit. The fact that they're going to get you on this, much less likely to transmit the virus to others. Thereby, if you are in any sort of front-facing business, regardless of what it is, whether you're a plumber, a builder, a washing machine technician, whatever, it doesn't matter. Waiter. If you talk to other people in your job, which is what most of them are at the end of the day, most jobs are one-on-one. They're not just you by yourself doing your own thing. They're going to nail you with it. And at this moment in time, there doesn't seem to be terribly much wiggle room out of it, especially considering what the Justice Minister, Robert Buckland, said the other week, I think it was. 1 minute, I'll check. Yeah, indeed it was. It was the other week. That will probably be the finishing article that we get onto at the end. They go on to say, so it's not the amount of risk an individual is prepared to take in risk of their own health, because choosing not to vaccinate affects other people. But the degree to which other people are impacted will vary. At one end of the scale are healthcare professionals who are much more likely to be exposed to COVID and pass it to others. At one end, okay, they then don't go on to give another end of the scale. No wonder why I was tripping up. It's therefore likely to be reasonable to instruct frontline staff to be vaccinated. This doesn't actually clarify whether they mean simply NHS staff or also. I think this is worded in such a vague way, deliberately vague, that they're saying anybody who's on the front line in any capacity, it doesn't matter what the business is. If you're seeing other people, you're screwed. Ian, first off, hello, I hope you're well. I would not be taking that personally. What I mean is, sorry, I would not cancel it. I would simply not turn up. That would be my approach. At the end of the day, if you didn't book it, there's absolutely no reason on you to cancel it. I'd be really interested to know how many other people have been booked in without actually doing it. I would say it would cost them money, but let's be honest, the NHS doesn't really care about money. I would just ignore it. Pretend it never came through. Okay, this keeps happening. I'm not sure why. Sorry about that, chat. Okay, but it is much less likely to be reasonable where staff have limited contact with others, and there are other measures you can put in place to protect them. This is something they go on to talk. Where'd it go? The other issue to consider, blah, 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 is that it? No, it is not. There we go, number 4. This is the bit that I wanted to get onto. There is one particular quote in this, which is, it really shows you the person's mentality. Whoever this woman was who wrote it, I have a very strong, sneaky feeling that she was a Ramona. If we make a reasonable request for staff to be vaccinated, what can we do if they refuse? It depends on the reason they give you for refusing. Although the vaccine is approved for use in most adults, there may be specific reasons why it's not recommended for some people. So instantly they're working on the assumption that simply not wanting it isn't good enough. I don't want it. Nope, tough luck. My body, my choice. It only comes into play when we're murdering babies. Beyond that, no. You don't get a choice. You have to jab up, lad. The government acknowledges that a very small number of people won't be able to take it. Good for them. I was one of them. Anyone who is advised not to have the vaccine will obviously be able to reasonably reasonably refuse to have it. They then don't talk about pregnant women, not terribly important, to be honest. The staff may be worried about having a vaccine. The WHO refers to this as vaccine hesitancy. This term, the first time I remember coming across this, was not from the WHO. It was from... I can't remember where it's from now. Suddenly, I'm pretty damn certain it was the WEF, the World Economic Forum. That was the first time I came across it. Not that it was the first time that it was used. The first time it was used, I think, was a Spanish paper in 2001. I'll have to look into that exact thing. But this term here, vaccine hesitancy, if you see that, that is not from the WHO. That is from the World Economic Forum. Oh, John Font, this is the most annoying argument ever. There are things like recency biases that people just forget. And then obviously, if you've had it and you're fine, that doesn't mean everybody's fine. It also doesn't mean that you are actually fine. It simply means that you're fine for right now. But it's an incredibly painfully stupid argument. They then go on to bemoan the fact that black British groups, whatever the hell that is, I've only heard of them referred to as BAME before, but okay. These are the next level. These are the level 2. These have leveled up. Just assign signposts when possible, blah, blah, blah. You may also have to consider whether individuals who refuse the vaccine are protected under the Equalities Act based on their religious or philosophical belief. That's interesting. Surely a philosophical belief is basically, I don't want it. God, bloody hell, Jimmy, I'm sorry about that, mate. First off, good for you on standing on your principles, as opposed to letting them bully you off them. I do genuinely have a very strong feeling that there is nothing we'd be able to do about this sort of thing. And it is purely because of the thing that Buckland said. I'm just going to read the quote out now, just because it's relevant. Buckland said it was unlikely bosses could make existing employees have vaccines under their current contract. He added, however, that legal action would settle the issue. I'd be surprised if there were contracts of employment existing now that made that approach lawful. I think, frankly, the issue will have to be tested. Basically, the Justice Minister is saying, sue us! Or, do it and let it go to court and let's see what happens. The problem is these people are also the people in court. So, yeah. Stack the judges much, why not? If your policy adversely affects people from protected groups, blah, 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 it will potentially indirectly discriminatory. And if challenged, you'll have to justify your approach. This was the sentence. I need a different color to oh, no, that's awful. I need a different color to red just so this stands out afterwards. Or cyan. Is that suitably sickening, chat? I'm not sure it is. I'd like a nice neon vomit. That's the green. No, the green is like a good happy color. Maybe not. How about grey? There we go. That's kind of miserable enough. Anti-vaxxers subscribing to the myriad of conspiracy theories doing the rounds are unlikely to be protected because they have to show that their beliefs are worthy of respect in a democratic society. You can feel the disdain. You can feel the disdain all the way into your bones. This person actually genuinely hates to help you if you voted for Brexit. I have a feeling she would not be very kind to you. I wish I could just pin that as a comment, just by itself. To put it on the background or something. Can we dismiss anyone who unreasonably refuses to be elected? Potentially, yes. Which is good news, apparently. Provided that you can show that taking the vaccine is a reasonable management request, whether you laid out that reasonable management requests are so vague. They're just so vague. Like, it's a reasonable management request if you're engaging with other human beings. Well said, Will. I think we're going to be spending much more time on that other comment later on. That's a good point as well, Zan. One thing I don't really understand, oddly enough, this isn't a criticism of the jab at all. How can they test a jab and they test its effectiveness if they're not allowed to conduct human experimentation? Although, again, they did change that the other day as well. I saw that they, for some reason, legalized it in this one very niche scenario. They've decided to round up about 30 odd volunteers and infect them with COVID, which is really, truly is clown world. Anyway, you must consider alternatives first, homeworking, or move them to a role where they don't come into contact with many people. And consider the reasons why they've refused. That's kind of, I don't know. That's an odd phrase, but this was the part that I wanted to comment on. Basically, if you don't take the jab, we're going to move you around and we're going to put you into the worst job. This doesn't specify whether they can cut your pay. I have a strong feeling they'd be able to, quite comfortably. I don't think this means they're going to go from turning you into an account manager all the way down to cleaner, but there may certainly be companies out there that try. This is a damn good question, Kate. Because the vaccine companies themselves are exempt from it, but that doesn't mean employers are. I'd be pretty interested to know if they'll do that. Obviously they won't, but I think it should be, considering they are basically forcing you to take it, or at the very least they're coercing you to an extreme degree. Given they are coercing you into taking it, yes, I think that should be a part of it. And if they're not, once again, you just have to look at who are in the courts, who put them there, and then complain about what a wonderful capitalist system this is, apparently. It's always funny to me how communists complain about this being a capitalist system. It's like, really? Tell me how. Please point it out. I'm waiting. All I see is an incredibly overburdened state. An incredibly enormous government crushing the living souls out of everybody. You'll need to warn employees and give them a final opportunity to comply. Final opportunity to comply. Compliance is all they require. Resistance is futile, remember that. Indeed, they cannot, Stephen, but that doesn't mean they can't get companies to do it for you. And then it's going to be very simple. It's going to be a case of, do you want a job? Are you happy living on the breadline? Do you want a job? Oh, here's a job. You just got to take this first. It's enforced compliance, exactly our mouse. Dead on, mate. I don't think dictatorship goes far enough for this, but I do agree. But once again, just note this tone of this person. You'll also need to warn the employee and give them a final opportunity to comply before deciding to dismiss them. Obviously, as well, HR, you've got to cover your legal back, haven't you? Can we insist that our staff tell us if they've been vaccinated? This section I found kind of interesting. I don't remember who it was earlier on who said, I think it may be Ian, I may be incorrect. Somebody asked or said that your medical records are private information. So how are they going to double check? Seemingly, they've got ways around it because they completely brush over that fact. And they say, information about who has been vaccinated will constitute sensitive personal health data, and you'll need to comply with GDPR. Same will be true about information on who has not been vaccinated and why. They do this thing. I can't really work out how to phrase it, but they do this thing and you see it all the time popping up. It was Daffod. There you go. I just remembered. Thank you, Matt. They work off of assumptions and they lead you down the line. And they basically get you to agree to their assumptions as well. Good, Kate. That's bloody good. This is what we need to do. We need to start pushing back as individuals as much as we can. There will be a lot of us who lose jobs. Like a hell of a lot of us. I think if your employer is one of the sort of people who reads this, so it's any sort of large company, anything along those lines at all, I would not expect to be working for them for terribly much longer. Keeping in mind that the Pimlico Plumber thing only happened, 10 days ago, I think? I'm pretty certain it only happened on the 15th of the month. It may have happened before then. You know, let's not get clever. Let's say it happened 3 weeks ago. We've gone from, oh no, you definitely can't do that, to the government laying out a pathway where they would be able to do that. And people like this writing articles saying, oh yeah, you can definitely do that. This is an interesting line. I never read this originally. You probably shouldn't even be asking staff to volunteer this information unless you have a good, lawful reason for needing to know the answer. That's interesting. I don't know what to make of that, but that's an interesting line. Indeed it is, Space Oddle. Which really is what Joe and I and the WRT and hopefully all of you guys are all about. This is why we need the community aspect, because you've got absolute maniacs like this person. There is no other way to word this individual. When they're saying things like anti-vaxxers subscribing to the myriad of conspiracy theories doing the rounds are unlikely to be protected because they have to show their beliefs are worthy of respect in a democratic society. When your boss is reading this sort of stuff, eventually it's going to permeate into their warped little minds. And that's the problem we face. You know, while your co-workers may be woke, or sorry, not woke, while your co-workers may be reasonable individuals, other people within the company may not be. And depending on the position those other people hold, you could be in a world of bother. I would say most jobs, not all, but most jobs require us to be working consistently around groups of other people. this, I think, is our only way back. I think all you guys realise that as well. Of course you do. You know, our only way out of this now is just start pushing back in little ways. Pushing back in meaningful ways. You know, if you've got a company such as Pimlico Plumbers, who are obviously ran by a very peculiar person, it is common sense not to use them. It is common sense to go to other people, other companies in that area, or better yet, go to self-employed people. You know, go on to Yelp and various other websites like that. Doesn't do you much good if you work in a large national or international company, though, as we're going to start seeing with NHS staff, unfortunately. NHS considering mandatory vaccination for frontline staff. Doctors have a professional responsibility to get a COVID-19 vaccine and could face disciplinary action if they refuse one without a valid reason. When I was reading through this was the first thing I saw. Like, out of everything I saw, obviously the headline, but then this. Because I saw that and I instantly tweaked what they were going to do, and I certainly hope everybody has, and I would expect you probably have. Maybe not everyone. Somebody's just woken up, but I would expect most people to have worked this out already. They're just going to pressure you and say, well, you're a doctor. You have a professional responsibility to behave in certain ways anyway. The vaccine is just another extension of that. You have a professional responsibility to take the thing. So not only are they going after you not only are they going after you in terms of strong encouragement, as the previous article stated, but they're then going to start attacking your quality of work and how much you care about your patients, which is a very frightening thing. Because that's the sort of thing that makes people crack. Because it's one thing saying, hey, you're crazy. That's fine. If you've gone into the healthcare industry, you're obviously a very empathetic person. Well, at least most of them are, I would imagine. Yeah, as much as we like to mock the TikTok nurses and what have you, in order to do that job, you have to be a pretty caring individual. So if you say you're not doing the best thing that you possibly could to your patients, or for your patients rather, it may not affect you the first day, it may not affect you the first month. Eventually, there's going to be a little chink in your arm and you're going to think, hey, I can't be asked for this. Obviously, it's safe. Everyone else has got it. They're okay. It's just me. I'm the only holdout. I'm obviously not doing everything I can. This is my professional responsibility. Although the government has said vaccination will not be mandatory for the general public because they can't, it has been reported that the NHS executives have been considering making it a requirement for frontline healthcare workers. Following the footsteps of many health care homes, rather. I say the word healthcare so much. As soon as I see care in a sentence about health, I'm like, yes, that's my time. Anyway, this has apparently come from Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitley. He said that they have a professional duty to be vaccinated, and according to the report in the Times, there is a live debate amongst NHS leaders about mandatory. Well, the general rule of thumb is anything that the government can do to gain a little bit more power, they're going to do, so give it time. The General Medical Council has said doctors should be immunised against various communicable diseases unless medically constrained. And measures should be put in place to protect patients where good reasons why a doctor cannot have the jab. Where there are good reasons. Okay, sorry, I misread that, my bad. Likewise, the British Medical Association. So see, they've already got 3 people doing it now, basically. They've got Whitney, who started it, General Medical Council getting on board, and then the British Medical Association basically pulling back just a little bit, trying to seem like the reasonable people in the room. They backed his position, but then they went on to say, we continue to encourage uptake of vaccinations, but any proposal for contractual or regulatory requirements for healthcare workers to have a COVID-19 vaccine would require careful scrutiny to consider the legal and ethical implications. This is what they do so very well, because you've got well, I will get back to that in a moment. Sorry. This is what they do so well, because you've got Whitney putting out the insane statement. Everyone's got to have it. You've then got the Medical Council saying, yeah, we agree with this. This is a good time. You've then got these nutbags saying, nutbags, okay, apologies for that one. You've got these nut jobs saying, we agree with this, but it should be scrutinized. So there you go, trying to appear like the reasonable person in the room. Nice English name as well, for that matter. Anyway, NHS England has said it was right for Whitney to suggest NHS staff have a professional responsibility to get vaccinated. This website has then gone on to contact them for further comment. I'd be interested to find the original article where they say that. But anyway. Last week, poor old Laughing Hancock went on to reveal that just 2/3 of social care staff and 4/5 of NHS workers received a vaccine. I'm actually kind of amazed that it's that high. 4/5, that's an incredibly high number. But then again, I suppose it's easy cannon fodder. There's been debate around it, blah, blah, blah. Was that all of it? This was the part of the article that I was also kind of interested in. Apparently, this care home operator has already started doing it. So Charlie Mullins, the weird-looking man, he has come out in favour of it. It kind of reminds me of Rod Stewart. I'm pretty sure Kate said that earlier on as well. We'll take a look at him in a moment. It is very Rod Stewart-esque. Basically, they've already started doing it, which is, slippery slope. These things happen very, very quickly. You go from a hopefully reasonable position to insanity to, let's make it mandatory within a matter of 3 weeks. And this, as I said, is the... He just looks like him, I'm sorry, he really does. Who could say working for a man who looks like that seriously? Come on, you expect him to break out the song any moment. This was the government's response, which I've referenced several times tonight. No job recruitment is legal. And once again, it's not by any sort of mug. Justice Secretary, he is in the government. He is the one making these laws, or doing whatever the hell he does. I'm not actually sure what the Justice Secretary does. I think he's the one who appoints the judges, which is frightening. Mr. Potato Head. As I was saying, considering this is the man who he's the one whose opinion actually matters, because he's the one who's able to put pressure on other people to get them to do what he wants. If he's saying it is legal, then it will be legal, which is very different to what they were saying originally. Just notice the timeline, though. This article was published when? On the 18th of February. Let's find out when the Pimlico Palmer's thing was. 1 second, Jack. Okay, this was a bit further back in time than I realised. This was a month ago. This was on the 15th of January. So in the space of 1 month, we've gone from, no, companies aren't going to be able to, you have to have a vaccine in order to work for them, to Justice Secretary coming out and saying, yes, I can. I changed my mind. Sorry, lads. I misread the statement. I thought you said that it was going to be, you weren't going to be allowed to work for them. Of course you will be able to. Don't be silly. Just take the vaccine. You'll be fine. It goes on to explain that it was an interview on the ICV. Pretty irrelevant, really. The flavour pads out the article just a little bit. He has then gone on to explain that geezer Charlie Mullins got legal advice, which is what I would expect them to have. This is the sort of thing that must make them just ecstatic. They'll be using the new contracts 2 to 3 months from now. When people come along for a job with us, if they're not happy to sign that, then again, that's their choice. But they certainly won't be given a job with Pimlico Plumbers. See, this is their bloody attitude, and I hate it because they think it's capitalism and it isn't. If they're not happy to sign that, then again, that's their choice. I have a lot to say on that. I'll be getting back to that later on, I have a feeling. With regards to our staff, we're doing all we can to reassure and encourage those who are a little more resilient to have the vaccination. And we're also ensuring that new staff have the vaccination, if they medically can, before starting work, looking after our vulnerable residents. Unusual way to phrase a sentence, but okay. This geezer here, David Samuels, a legal director at law firms Lewis and Skillen, confirmed that there is nothing legally to stop a business from placing a no job clause in contracts for new hires. But he said such policies would be shown to be discriminatory. Could be shown, rather, sorry. They could, for example, disproportionately affect young people who had to wait much longer than middle-aged and elderly people to get the vaccination. Which is kind of an interesting twist. The only reason they're not doing it at the moment is because it isn't offered to the general public. As soon as it is offered to the general public, though, I would expect to see these sort of no jab, no job clauses much, much, much more often. Blah, blah, blah. He goes on to waffles more. Here was the particular thing that I wanted. Sexual for a legal claim. No, there we go. Barkland said it was unlikely bosses could make existing employees have vaccines under their current contracts. He added, however, that legal action could settle the issue. I'd be surprised if there were contracts of employment existing now that did make that approach lawful. I think, frankly, the issue would have to be tested. So once again, these people are not our friends. We all know this. Everybody knows these people aren't our friends. It is not... It's certainly not a good time to be unemployed. I have a strong, sneaky feeling that in a couple of months' time, it will not be a good time to be employed either. Self-employment is the way forward, or at least working for small companies where you actually know the people making these decisions. Because once again, as I said, the people you work around may be perfectly normal people. If your head office is in another country or in another city, You don't know what those people are like. Odds are they're not going to be your people. Odds are they're going to be jobs worth, basically. So yeah, that was all. I just find that line there the most worrying of all. I think, frankly, the issue would have to be tested. That is effectively the government saying, do it. Do it. Go ahead, do it. Take it to court, see what happens. Because they know the outcome. They're going to phrase the law in such a way whereby it is very easy for them to say, oh, you know what, maybe this is important that this person has a vaccination. So yeah, that's the world we're living in, chat. A very, very strange world indeed. We need to start chipping away at this, little ways, in as many different ways as possible. We keep saying this, we keep banging on about it because it's so important. I know many of you agree. I know many of you are actually doing something about it as well and not just agreeing. Things like buying from Amazon. You know, if we start choking them off that way, wherever possible, buying in small local shops as opposed to large national or international ones. At the end of the day, we're all kind of in the same boat at the moment. We're all kind of limited. A lot of shops aren't open. Agreed, mate. Yeah, they're all the same. Doesn't matter which party they're from. They're all the same. They're all, I called them jobs worth earlier on, but that's basically what they are. They're just wretched little creatures. They won't say anything because it is entirely. It is something they're going to benefit from. They leave these jobs, and where do they go? They go then work at a bank. They go and work at GSK. They go and work at any of these things. These massive companies that are making enormous profits at the moment. So of course they're going to keep the mouth shut. Really, you have to be a very certain type of person to become a politician. Your lack of morality is well known, but the lack of moral principle is the big one. If they go whichever way the wind blows them, and that's good enough for them. Unfortunately for us at the moment, the wind is blowing us in a very bad way. So yeah, that was all. As I said at the beginning of the stream, D-Live wasn't there, unfortunately, so I'm going to go over it again, let's say, because apparently my brain has stopped working. It's disintegrated from under me. We're going to try something different over the next couple of weeks and see how it goes. We're going to be doing much more focus streams like this. This is what we were meant to be doing yesterday. We weren't able to because my microphone decided that it wasn't going to work. Even though it wasn't actually my microphone, but Windows, with a very weird bug, which I'm still not sure why it happened. Spineless. Yeah, there you go. That basically describes politicians. Daffyd says, an employer cannot ask a medical professional for an employee's medical records. Also, an employer cannot ask. Employee to disclose, etc. That's the law. I would agree. That would be my stance. I would agree with that. I do think, though, that they are such weaselly little wretched creatures that they've worded the law now in such a way whereby they're going to be able to get away with something. Or they're going to be able to pressure you. I agree that it's the law. Unfortunately, they make the law up as they go along. That's something we covered months ago. Yes, I get it's the law. I get it. I do. I agree. I know it's the law. The problem is these people make the law. They can do whatever they want. As I was saying, that they have recently changed the law whereby all future referendums need to pass by a margin of 10%. They did this very sneakily, very, very, very quietly. And they will probably not be able to do the same sort of thing over this, because medical privacy is medical privacy at the end of the day, but they will work out some way of doing something. You know, basically, if you claim that you have had the vaccine, sorry, if you claim to have had the vaccine, then they're going to make you show it in one way, shape, form, or another, or they're going to mark you down as not having had it. That would be the simple way around it. Exactly. David said they huff and they puff, the lying cajole. Exactly right. Anyway, as I was saying, wrapping this stream up, we're going to be doing shorter streams, much more focused like this one. Probably a greater variety of subjects, but we're definitely going to be looking around for sites such as this, which is, well, you know, I'll read their blurb out for you, but I basically gave it to you earlier on. They are the largest employment HR website going, blah, 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 all that jazz. Just relatively niche websites like this who provide information for people who actually matter. That came out wrong. I didn't mean that. You know how I meant it. They provide information and articles and advice and what have you for our employers. You know, the people who actually make decisions in our life, who are not us. They're making decisions for us. There you go. That's what I meant to say. The brain's shutting down, lads. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. That means Wednesday will be back to normal next week. It was just this week. We wanted to do this yesterday. Didn't go well, so such is life. Tomorrow we are doing the gardening stream. Got an extremely important guest lined up for that, and I'm very excited about it because I don't know very much about gardening. So that's going to be a great deal of fun. And yeah, was there anything else? I don't think there was. What we are going to do now, though, everybody who wants to do it anyway, is jump over to the Wall Social that is on our Discord. So I'm going to pop a link to that in chat. When I find it, give me a second. I should have grabbed this earlier on. I didn't. I forgot. Yeah, there we go. That'll look. There's a link to Discord if anybody wants it. Come first serve, basically. So yeah. Indeed, Philomena, great chat. I enjoyed tonight. Oh, Ragnar, you asked a bloody important question, mate. 41 in chat on YouTube. How many of them have actually had an appointment with their GP in the last year? I have a feeling not terribly many. Certainly hardly anybody's going to be having face-to-face ones. But yeah, anyway, that was all. I hope you're all well, and I will see you over on the Discord. See you there.